But right now, for a little bit of pre-gaming, we have the very fetching, always lovely, if she's there, hopefully, Miss Megyn Kelly. Are you there?
Hey, I'm here. How you guys doing?
Well, not so good now that I'm on a split screen with you and I have these thighs. So I appreciate you making the time.
I feel totally underdressed, I gotta say. I should have brought my A game.
Well, I appreciate it because you are underdressed and I'm disgusted. But let me ask you this. By the way, your YouTube is Megyn Kelly and the Twitter is Megyn Kelly. She's been doing some wonderful work, which we'll get to in a second. Also, your exclusive interview with Tara Reid, because that's incredibly relevant tonight. But Megyn, I wanted to ask you something as someone who's moderated these debates in the past, specifically watched Pence there on stage in person. What do you expect to go down tonight?
I think it's basically the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, right? And especially if you're Kamala Harris, because they're winning, right? They're ahead in all the latest polls by a lot. So if I were her, I'd want to be just as quiet and as meek as possible. This is not the time to come out and prove what a strong woman you are. It's like, I'm invisible, and the more he talks, the better off I am. It's fine. I don't have to say much. And Pence, he needs to be the statesman, sort of the yin to Trump's yang, and remind people that he can be serious and he can be solid, and he's not going to be, the hands and the mask, and he's going to be like the one that people can count on in a time of, crisis. And I think that's really all it is. It's about optics of him seeming serious and like the adult in the White House, and her being like, I'm not even here. It's all about Trump.
Oh my gosh, you got to go back to that. That's a Slate article waiting to happen, Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly says women should be meek.
It's smart. It would be smart. I think Joe Biden did the right thing too. But if I were him, I would have been even more silent at that last debate. Just like let Trump be Trump, and let him remind everybody that he does things that are controversial, and you just be over there like, oh me, I'm just gonna sip my latte. I'm gonna eat my kale, whatever.
Let me ask you this. Tara Reid, obviously, sexual allegations against Joe Biden, and you had an exclusive interview. We had you on the show when that happened. What do you think about, was it NBC or ABC, running it on their Australian network and not
60 minutes, Australia?
Minutes, yeah.
It was 60 Minutes, right. I always get 60 Minutes and Charlie Rose confused because I can't tell the difference between fossils. So what do you... What's your read on that, and how much relevance do you think it plays into any of this, considering that Kamala Harris said she believed Biden's accusers?
So, that interview will have nothing to do with anything tonight because it was in Australia, and people aren't even watching, American 60 Minutes as much as they used to, never mind the Australian version. And I do think a lot of people saw that Tara Reid interview that I did because I put it on YouTube, but most people just grabbed it. All the television networks grabbed it, and it was actually wound up being seen by way more than people who watch 60 Minutes. We did the numbers. It's like almost 30 million. So they're aware of her. The electorate is aware of her. But the media has avoided that story like the plague. I mean, like Trump coughing all over the Rose Garden right now. I mean, they are like, no, Tara Reid, we don't want to talk about it. Right. And I feel bad for this woman because it took guts to come forward. I mean, assuming she's telling the truth, it took guts to come forward. If you assume she's not telling the truth, she at least deserves a fair hearing. And we were lectured about that at length during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and they just wouldn't give her the time of day. So I don't think you're going to get a Tara Reid question at any debate at all.
Yeah, no, I know wishful thinking. Let me ask you this, kind of shifting pace there, because you mentioned Brett Kavanaugh and kind of getting into the legal side. You obviously have a legal background. What do you think about the declassifying right now with all the sort of, I guess, Russiagate, Spygate, whatever you want to call it at this point, all of these documents? Do you think that was planned as an October surprise from the Trump camp, and is it too little too late? Do you think it'll have any kind of an effect, or even, I don't suspect it'll come up tonight?
I do think it was planned, or it was they knew about it, and the timing is not a coincidence, and it's probably not the only thing to come out, but I don't think it's going to do anything. I mean, you tell me the media outlet other than maybe Fox, maybe even the Washington Examiner, I don't even know if the Journal will go with it, that's really going to pump that story. The media is all in for Biden. They don't want to hear anything that's bad for him or good for Trump. Their coverage thus far has been 90% bad for President Trump, all along negative about President Trump. So why would they change this close out from the election? They're clearly dying for Biden to win.
Yeah, no, I think I think the only way maybe it would be undeniable is if something comes out where Biden knew about it as well, and they would have to ask him directly. Something sort of popped up in the documents that no longer are redacted.
Steve, remember what happened with when President Trump made a major step toward not achieving peace in the Middle East, but a major step toward it? It was nowhere. No, they barely wrote about it. You wouldn't know he did anything. I actually follow the podcast The Daily. That's the New York Times podcast every day.
Apologies.
And it's interesting. I like to keep an eye on what they're doing, what they're saying. They've never covered it. Never once. They were talking about, I don't know, some genocide in some country nobody's ever heard of. They never talked about the Middle East or what just happened. It's like, all right, well, I'll wait.
What about Hunter Biden's $3 million from the Moscow widow to do blow off sex slaves' hip bones? Did that pop up in the New York Times podcast? I don't listen.
No, they don't. I think they did a defense of Hunter Biden when that story first came out, and I haven't heard about Hunter since then. They usually switch when there's news like that to the pandemic. Back to the pandemic, which is the bad story for Trump.